got your start actually stocking shelves at your parents' liquor store, and in '96 you rebranded, renamed it, and you launched one of the first and certainly one of the most successful e-commerce liquor stores in the country at the time. This is really early in the dot-com kind of bubble and boom, but it worked out for you. So back then, when everyone was doing it and you stood out, what's the biggest takeaway you had from then, and what's the lesson that really sticks out even today from back then?
That became the first grown-up example of my intuition of what people were gonna do, even though smarter, older, wealthier, more accomplished people told me that they weren't. That was the first example, if I'm recapping it, that I could point to that said, in a big boy version, I was right, the incumbents were not. And the reason I say big boy, prior to that, I had been doing, a lot of things from age 11 to 21 in sports cards, comic books, collectible toys. And I made a lot of decisions during that 10-year window that were countercultural to what people thought. I sold my entire baseball card collection 6 months before the market crashed and put it into comics and collectible toys, and those markets exploded. That was the first young boy version of me being wildly right when people were like, why are you selling cards? It's the hottest. And all of that on both scenarios, my friend, came down to me watching real people at scale instead of trying to look at reports or, and here's a big one for a lot of people on this stream or watching this video, I didn't allow where I was making money to dictate what I thought was gonna happen tomorrow. That's a big one. Even though I was making a lot of money, a couple $1,000 a weekend in sports cards, which by the way, still feels like $1 trillion. I still don't make that kind of money. I was like, these people are not as interested. The fever's gone. People are talking more about Star Wars and Spider-Man than Frank Thomas and Ken Griffey. I'm feeling something. Half my class that was into cards isn't anymore, and it's not just because they're into girls now, because they're still into video games. And I do that all the time. It's how I do everything to this day. So in '96, that was really betting the farm. I asked my dad for $15,000 to build winelibrary.com. That felt like $1 trillion, just to give everyone context on a small business. For something that'd be like asking a company today, a small business, for like $200,000 to build a metaverse, right? It just seemed crazy. The reason the .com thing felt right, whereas I wouldn't ask a small business to build a metaverse for $200K today, was I felt we were close enough to people actually buying wine on the internet. And that's how I saw it. And I thought the internet thing was gonna be the biggest thing. And that was because I was watching people, not just my friends, but I noticed my friend's mom created email to email her son at college. And then I would listen and I would hear that his mom said now she's emailing with her sister, and they're 47, and this is 1996. I'm like, there's things I hear that people do that very quickly my chemicals tell me everyone's gonna do that, not just them. And that was that example, and that has become the formula of my career. Listen to real people every day. Don't let the way I'm making my money or how I hope to make my money or my success or my joy, right? Some people don't do things because they don't like it. It doesn't matter if I don't like posting pictures on Instagram. People want to consume pictures on Instagram. My family took 25 photos in our lifetime. We were a non-photo family. So Instagram was hard for me. I mean it. The thought of taking a picture is just, to this day, is foreign. So that's how I think about it.
You're on YouTube pretty much daily for around 5 years, doing these long form episodics, you on camera, something that people really weren't doing back. I mean, this is months to maybe a year after YouTube launches, right? So you're really early in that game. And you're doing it by yourself. You're consistently telling people, especially people who are posting videos, don't worry about your audience, don't worry about your likes, don't worry about your subscribers. So what was this experience like for you early on, just one guy talking to a camera back then?
That was the biggest, that February 20th, 2006, or 21st, I always get confused, I think it's 21st. That was, that's probably one of the most significant business days of my life, right? I say business because I think so much of what makes me work is realizing family and real life is real life, and business, even though I'm passionate about it and people know I'm passionate about it, is a very different, is a game in a lot of ways. But that was one most, it may be top 3 most significant business days of my life, because I'm 30 years old at this point, and there's not a thought in my mind that ever is thinking that anybody on earth is gonna know who I am outside of the wine and spirits. Or I did have bigger aspirations, but business people, right? Like business stuff, not like normal people knowing who I am. And that started the journey of normal people knowing who I am, and it started the journey of me enjoying communicating around complicated subjects. Wine is very complex. It's extremely intimidating. Most of the people watching right now don't drink as much wine as they could be because it is a little too intimidating. They actually think they have to know something to even drink it, which is something we don't do in many other categories of consumption. So demystifying wine was a huge thing for me, because remember, I'm 30 now. I've been building this big business for my dad for the last 8 years. I want all my 20-year-old friends to care about it, and none of them, brother, could care about it. There wasn't 20-year-olds in the late 90s, early 2000s that could give a crap about wine. It's much cooler now. The NBA, I think, has made it cooler. Sideways, the movie came along. A lot of things, 2 Buck Chuck, a million things happened that made wine more interesting for 20-year-olds. But outside of highly wealthy, generational wealthy kids in their 20s, almost no other 20-year-old paid attention to wine, like real wine, not like Franzi in a box or something like that, right? So I wanted to demystify it, and I learned so much. The comments, long form video, creative. I learned a lot about myself, which was I was a captivated communicator, and I later built on that to create opportunities. That was one of the great learning, and I'll tell you what I really learned from episode 1 on. And we actually just did this as a team. We cut a clip where I made the first episode thinking I was gonna do QVC. A couple minutes into the episode, I realized I was doing 1970s, 1950s news, when news used to be a public service product, not an entertainment product. And so I thought I was going in with the most selfish intent. Episode 1 of Wine Library TV was built to sell wine on the internet. I was gonna do QVC. I'm gonna take wines, I'm gonna tell you what to buy. Immediately within the first episode, within the first 10 minutes, within the first 5 minutes, I think you just did the word right. Within the first 5 minutes, you could see me kind of look to the side, and I didn't recall when I did it, but then the team just showed me the video. I was like, uh-oh, I need to review wine and bring them value, not me value, and I gotta tell them the truth, because I don't love every wine we sell. And by the way, that doesn't mean that I'm right, because everyone has a different palate. And it took the show to the stratosphere. People were flabbergasted that I was the owner of this store selling these wines and telling people not to buy the wine. My dad is still flabbergasted I did that. You know, I think I've been a great salesman my whole life because I don't sell things that I don't believe in. You know, I believe that Empathy Wines is a dramatically better $20 wine than most $20 wines in the market. I know that because I know the sources of the grapes and things of that nature. But I also think that Maggie, who I adore, is sitting here, she may like a $7 wine better than Empathy. That's okay. You know, but I think, and this is actually, Mike, I'll be honest with you, this is actually where I've had a little bit of, I don't have a whole lot of problems with the people in the industry, right? Even though we were like renegades and people would razz me, I always understood. But the one thing that did always bother me is, you know, after 4 glasses of wine, mainly rosé at Cannes, a lot of these people who would publicly post nasty things about me or razz me in meetings would kind of get just tipsy enough to say, you're onto something, or you're right. And I would ask them, that's always so nice. So I try to be remarkably gracious in those moments. Because I think all the things that have worked for me is the byproduct of my parents and the luck of my DNA draw. So I don't get too high on my Garyvee supply. I say to them, I'm like, why are you selling something you don't believe in? And I know the answer. People have lives and this is where they find themselves, and they have mortgages and kids. Like, you know, I get it, but there's so many people that could be doing other things outside of Madison Avenue. Now with us, I think there'll be a lot of copycatting of us in the next decade, so there'll be alternatives, but like, you know, what's most important to me? That I believe in it. Like, I believe that I am going to build one of the most significant intellectual properties of all time. I really believe that. I really believe that Practical Peacock can be like Lisa Simpson one day. I really believe that. And so, as you can imagine, that gives me the energy to go so hard, to believe, like I'm really into it. And so you've got to believe in what you know. I believe the K-Swiss sneaker at that $40 price range is as good of an alternative as another sneaker. And if you choose to like believe in the mission statement of the sneakers, which is be kind, be practical, you know, if you see something in front of you that you want, it's gonna take work ethic, not burning out, but work ethic, you know, and things like that. So I always believe in the stuff I sell. The Garyvee stuff, I believe that my mom is the greatest mom of all time. I believe that. I believe other moms have come along that tie my mom because they also are 100% about their children, but also not delusional and keep it in this great mix of like self-esteem building, but not entitlement building, which is impossible. Trust me, I don't think I'm good at it with my kids, so I get it. It's hard. So I believe in the things that I talk about, patience and kindness, but I do believe in tenacity and competition. So I live in this world, and I'll use America. I live in this world that is desperately trying to make the world about red or blue, and every day pushes more red or blue, and I know the answer is purple, right? Look at me. Yeah. I, as a marketing proxy, I think the Super Bowl is the #1 ad in marketing, the best ad you can buy, right? Even though I'm very anti other television.